Display recording.
Okay, good morning, everybody. This is Bert Finger from Fort Langford. This morning, instead of our usual, just me rambling on aimlessly about several subjects at one time, this morning's adventure is we're going to can a pork butt. Now, I hear a lot of people talking about canning and how dangerous it is to use a pressure canner. Well, today we're going to discover that it's not any more dangerous to use a pressure canner than it is to boil water. If you can do one, you can do the other. So we're just going to have at this here first. I'm going to be cutting in and out on this recorder because if I got to show you how to cut pork into a 1-inch piece, you're beyond the help anything I can help you with. What we're going to do is cut this thing into chunks, put it into these canning jars, right up to the bottom here of this lip. That's going to give us 1 inch of head space. And when we get all this pork cut up, we'll be back and show you where we are, what we do next. Welcome back. I was almost wrong when I said there ain't too much I have to show you here. But we're filling this first jar up. And ain't sure if you can see it or not, but down here in the bottom, there's an empty space. Empty spaces are not your friends. So you take your knife, or they even sell little tools. You can get it. 'Cause when you pack your stuff, pack your jars, you want them firmly packed. And got to have a place for all the juice to go. And as far as I know, canning air just ain't necessary. So as you put your chunks of meat in here, take a minute to go around and kind of get meat down there and all the airspace, get the air spaces out. You'd be surprised how much a quart jar can hold. Now, we got a 10-pound chunk of meat as we're canning. And judging from what I'm putting up here, in this first jar, we got a good inch yet to go to the top. Now, when you're canning meat, you want an inch of head space. Now, there's two ways you can figure that out. You can take a ruler, straight edge, put in there, measure down to the top of your meat. Or on the edge of the jar here, you'll see there's a shoulder. Now, if you come up to the shoulder, that's 1 inch of head space between the top of your meat and the top of your jar. That's head space, and that is kind of important. So anyway, we're going to chunk up a little more meat here. And finish filling this jar. There we go, that should do her. That in there, and that in there, and that in there, that in there. We're getting it right down there. Okay. So we're about where we want to be. Now at this point, when we got her, just have our jar full here. At this point, if I was doing it for me, I'd go ahead and put in 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon of salt. But see, my wife is on a low salt diet, so we're going to skip that step. It ain't going to affect it at all. It's just a matter of how salty you like your meat. And I see a space down here I missed. So we'll go ahead and fill that one in. And it ain't got to be perfect, but you want it as close as you can get it. And But anyway, there you have one jar that's ready to go in the canner. Almost. So I'm going to go ahead and fill a couple more jars up here, and once we get enough to fill the canner, then we'll be right back and show you some more tips, tricks, and exciting adventures. Alright everybody, fun's all over. Now for the hell. We got 4 quarts of pork out of that 10 pounds. We have exactly that much waste that's going to have to go for dog food or something. We have 1 bone we can use to season some beans with or make some soup. And come here, you contrary thing. And 2 big pieces of fat like this that we're going to render down later on. But getting back to the cannon, we ain't here to render fat or make soup or anything. Here we go. This is the double pressure canner. You know, this is the one that explodes and kills you and your wife and children and 2 or 3 animals. Well, this is the lid for it. Inside the lid there's this rubber ring. That's the seal. You need to make sure that's flexible. As long as that's flexible, that's one of your biggest safety things. This little gray thing here, on this one it's gray, on one of my other canners it's red. It's a little piece of rubber. It fits through a hole very, very tightly. What this does is if too much pressure builds up in this canner, over 15 pounds, this little rubber thing will be forced through the little hole in the lid, and it will come out of there, and steam will go all over and fill up your kitchen. The noise will be like all the banshees of hell been turned loose at once. And that's a sign you should turn off your heat. But that keeps your pressure canner from exploding. This thing in the middle here is why this little thing can come through the side, come through the cover. This is where your weight sits on the outside. Your weight is going to sit on this little arm that sticks up, little nub sticks up. Well, anyway, there's a hole through the center of this. And no matter how close I get to the thing, you can't see the little hole, but it's there, trust me. The steam goes up there, and when you're at the proper pressure, it'll start to rattle the little weight on the top. This over here on this side is your pressure gauge. Now, when you hit the right temperature, the right amount of pressure in there, there's a plug on the outside. And that plug will go up. And once that plug goes up, that's when you can start timing your time for pressure canning. Not when it first starts boiling. The other thing in a canner that's really important is on the bottom you have like a grate. And that needs to be on there to keep your cans from being right on the bottom. If you buy a pressure canner and don't have one of those, you can take a towel, a hand towel or a kitchen towel, whatever, and put on there just to stabilize your cans, your jars, and make sure they don't bang into each other. The only other part that's direly important, this is your weight that sits on the top. Like this, it's 15 pounds. You take one of these weights off. Now it's going to hold 10 pounds of pressure. You take the next weight off, be canning with 5 pounds of pressure. Now what we're going to want for this pork is 10 pounds. So we'll just put one ring back on and leave one ring off to the side. But for God's sakes, don't lose it. The other thing is your canning lids. Now this is a ring, canning ring. We're using wide mouth jars, so we're using wide mouth rings and wide mouth lids. Now when you get your box of lids, you check this little brown ring around the edge here. That's your sealant. That's it's gonna soften and make a seal with the rim of your jar. And it's just vitally important that you have good seals, so check them, make sure there's no gaps in the red or yellow stuff that goes around. Now, before you use these, you want to heat them up. So, somewhere over there on the stove, I got a small pan with about a ½ inch of water in it. That I'm going to heat up just to simmering. Just enough to get these things hot. I'm going to put the lids in there, let them sit there for about a minute, and then fish them out one at a time with a fork and put them on jars. And before I do that, I have one more thing I have to do. I get a rag or a paper towel, put a little vinegar on it, go around the rim of the jars. What that does is if I got any grease or any kind of dirt on the edge of the jars, it ain't going to be in it. It's not going to be on that rim when that hot lid hits there. So if there's a lot of grease on there, it might not seal right. But anyway, that's basically all there is. Now I'm going to put some water in here. At this particular one, I used 3 quarts. And I put my jars in there. Now, this is a 7-quart canner. And I only have 4 quarts. So what do? Well, I put those 4 quarts that's full once they got the lids on and the rings. Put them in there. And then put 4 or 3 empty jars in there. And the reason I do that is it keeps the full jars from tipping over or shaking around too much. And if they tip over before they're sealed, that would be ugly. You just have a hell of a lot of pork soup in there. And that little tube that runs through the lid that your weight is sitting on would get clogged. And that is the only thing that can make your pressure valve release, your safety valve. And with that, I'll be back in a couple of minutes and we'll show you the rest of the ordeal. And what we're doing here now is we're coming over to the kitchen looking at the deadly pressure cooker. We put it on, brought it to a boil, brought it to temperature, and let it can for 90 minutes at 10 pounds of pressure and turn the fire off. Once we did that, we walked away from it and let it cool down. How do we know it's cooled down? Well, it isn't really cool, but the little gray pressure thing here has dropped down. So we take off the weight, and there's no steam just pouring out the top. So what we're going to do now is take off the lids, the lid there, and I'm going to put you down for a minute so I can do that, and I'll be right back. Okay, now we have the lid off, and as you can see, we have 3 empty cans and 4 full cans. And that's what it looks like inside there. There's our weight. And there's our lid. One little detail about this. When you take the lid off, you unscrew it to open, lift it up, and you do it away from your face. Because there's still a lot of steam in there. What's going to happen if you don't do it like I just described is that you're going to scald yourself. Now somewhere here, let's see, there it is. I have one of these. This is a quicker picker-upper. And you find them in the canning supplies section, just a pincher. And you go down, put it on the lid like this, just below the lid. And it allows you to pick this up without killing yourself. And normally you would want it a little closer than what we're doing here, but I just put this down on a rag on the table. And you'll repeat. Keep repeating until we're all out of jars here. Now, next big thing that's going to happen in our life once we get all these things unloaded here is you'll start hearing a ping, ping. And when every ping means your jar is sealing. And when it's sealed, then it's safe. Right now, if the light was better, you could see that the stuff in here is still boiling furiously. And that's just how it goes. This stuff don't play around. You can burn yourself really, really well if you get stupid. But just exercise care. And like I said, it's safe as boiling water. Now we got these 4 empty jars here. What are we going to do with them? Well, we're going to dump the water out of them. And since we didn't have any of our other jars break or the seal come loose or anything like that, we'll just take them out and set them off to the side here. Let them cool down to where we can deal with them. And then we'll put them in the clean jar box again. And the rest of this is water still just a shade under boiling. So we're going to let it sit there for just a little bit. Because it ain't hurting a thing to sit there. And that's the end of the dreaded canning story. There's nothing to do now but clean up, and I'm pretty sure you know how to do that. And thank you for listening in. Please like and subscribe. And we'll catch you on down the road. 73 to all you hams out there.